I don't know, but like I don't want to take
I
it.
don't
And this is Jaclyn.
Jaclyn's going to tell you about a capstone.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jaclyn. I'm a communications and critical thinking, like philosophy major with track, and I decided to team up with the digital media department to do my capstone entitled "Accidentally Brilliant." This is the logo. It's a podcast. So, Accidentally Brilliant is the title of a podcast produced by UMass Lowell. It's currently not available, but it will be available rather soon. It focuses on people in underrepresented groups, for example, women or minority groups, or the LGBT community, who pursued a degree in science, technology, engineering, or mathematics while defying adversity. It also showcases different and unusual cool careers that one can have in STEM, including sports research. There's in fact a sports research facility, a baseball research facility at UMass Lowell, and you'll hear that soon, and condom research, which you'll hear in a later slide. I know, it's a very taboo topic. Also, the podcast is in an interview style. It's pretty similar to podcasts such as NPR, 99% Visible, and Ear Hustle. I don't know if you've ever heard that. I know a lot of people have heard of NPR, but it's kind of like an interview style with interjecting like narration. How I decided to get involved in this, I was approached by two UMass Lowell professors after I took a podcasting class. Daniel Frank, who's in the digital media department, and Dr. Yonfen Lee in the biochemical engineering department. They liked what I was doing in the podcasting class, and they're like, "Would you like to join this?" And I'm like, "Am I able to make it my capstone?" And they're like, "Sure." And so I talked to Professor Krista Hodap, and she was very on board. And for the past year and a half, I've been working on this. UMass Lowell wanted to make a STEM podcast for incoming STEM students. Chancellor Julie Chen was very heavily involved in this. She really pushed for it. I wish she could see this. Maybe she'll see it soon. And also, it's a podcast for incoming STEM students and graduates who work in STEM, as well as anyone in the general public who's interested in the topics, which I think it's really good because I, as someone who isn't a STEM person, I'm able to fully understand what everyone's saying when they're talking very big science lingo. So I think it's very cool. So what I did was I made some pilot episodes and segments for the STEM podcast entitled Accidentally Brilliant. I was brought onto this project in December of 2021, and it's almost May of 2023. I'm still here. And now I would like to present a demo for you guys of it. It's only 5 minutes long, don't worry. Oh, cool. All right, that's happening.
It worked before. So.
I don't mind. It's going to be the same thing.
Imagine the kind of power a student has in a STEM field. They could wake up and create the biggest company on earth. Show me another field where that's doable.
There's so many wrong paths, and you just have to pivot day in, day out. That's just part of the journey.
My story begins with three seemingly unrelated things: Bill and Melinda Gates and condoms. Yep, you heard right, condoms. And yes, they actually have something in common.
I am Dr. Stacy Chin, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of a small startup called Hydroglide Coatings. Being a founder is really hard in itself. It's daunting, especially in the early days where you don't know what you're doing, everyone's downing you, and you're downing yourself too. You're thinking, you don't know much of business, but you know the science lingo, and you're trying to figure out, how do I learn the language? How do I go towards a startup path?
I've been playing baseball since I was 3. The culture of it to me is awesome. If I had to pick one facet that I enjoyed the most, it would probably be just simply catching a baseball, because there's actually more of an art to it than people give it credit. When I was in high school, I played the catcher position, and I learned about the appropriate way to simply catch a baseball effectively. Because baseball is such a game of deception, you can catch baseballs in a certain way from the umpire's perspective. Balls will look like strikes. And if you can take advantage of that, that will do nothing but help your team.
We use Legos all the time in planning. We really do. And especially, working with adults, they love Legos too. We've used them on many different projects, people always have a blast. I mean, who doesn't like building a good one? You can lay out an entire community plan using Legos. MIT, the Media Lab, had been using Legos to not only build replicas of the communities, but also connecting it through Bluetooth technology to make alterations in real time that would then project digitally. My name is Monica Tibbetson, and I'm a transportation official in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
A really important thing I gained from being a part of the CAL project is just the context around why it's so important for me as a Black man in this society to succeed.
First, I'd like to thank Dr. Mims for being a great role model, a math genius, and the founder of the Calculus Project.
The Calculus Project would not have been successful in Brookline had it not been for two women. When there were teachers at Brookline who didn't want to teach a section that had 40 to 45% African American students, Megan Kennedy Justice and Lisa Redding stepped up and said, "Give them to me."
If you can hear me, clap once. If you can hear me, clap twice. If you can hear me, clap 3 times. If I put 4 in for you, the equation will be true.
This country's becoming more and more diverse. If we don't find a way to harness all of this talent, I mean, there's talent there.
I've always loved cars since I was a little kid. But it never occurred to me that I could work for a car company until the opportunity presented itself. If it wasn't for the fact that I love the automotive industry, I probably wouldn't be where I am today. My name is Jaclyn. I'm an IT guy for a Ford Motor Company. And I am in fact the solo director for the Detroit Region STCA. So I'm heavily involved with putting on autocross events. I also compete nationally, so I travel around the United States to compete at these competitions.
What I try to tell the 20-year-old today, especially one that's interested at all in STEM, is don't sweat that so much, that first degree, because first of all, I don't care what engineering you go into. The fields are changing so much and so rapidly that continuous learning is critical. You're not going to end with a bachelor's. You're going to get a master's or more certificates. You may not get a doctorate, but you're always going to be going to school. Now, will it be a brick and mortar where I sit down and have a class every day? No, it could be online learning. It could be just reading journal articles. But we are in fields that cannot afford to stand still. So the foundations for all engineers and scientists are essentially the same. So just get a degree. You'll find that path. And then go on it and continue to learn on that path. It's okay. My name is Joe Hartman. I work as the Provost and Vice Chancellor for Academic and Student Affairs at UMass Lowell. And I'm an engineer by training, by previous life.
Alright, so hope you enjoyed that. Some of the voices you may recognize, including Monica Tibbetson, who currently works for Maura Healey's government in Massachusetts, and Joseph Hartman, as he just said, he's the Vice Provost and Chancellor. So, yeah, and other people who are kind of just around Massachusetts. Yeah. So you're wondering, you heard all of that. What did I do for this? So I did majority of post-production until recently when I started to do more of the production side. So for the production side, I got to interview some individuals. In fact, I interviewed someone last week. I think I interviewed a professor in the electrical engineering department who works in cybersecurity. I came up with questions to ask for that. I conducted a pre-interview with this professor. I think it's Orlando Arias. I don't know if you guys know who that is. But I set up and tested the equipment, and here's some of the equipment here. I made sure everything went smoothly. I recorded the audio, and I scouted adequate locations to record in. For that, like, you gotta find a room that doesn't have too much echo, or it's not too loud, or there's no squeaking noises, so the audio would sound like perfect and crisp. So it sounds a lot less hard than it actually is. And this is some of the equipment that the digital media department has. This is called a Rodecaster 2, and this is a Rode microphone. They're new. When I was taking podcasting, like I mentioned before, the digital media department did not have this nice of equipment, but when they became a major, they started getting a lot better equipment. Yeah, and in the post-production, I did a majority of this. I edited using Adobe Premiere and Adobe Audition. I edited for like quality. I'd rather just explain the process. So basically, I was given, when I was brought on, we made, there were already was recorded. I wasn't there for that because that was recorded during the pandemic. What I did was I was given the transcripts, which are basically the podcast itself, but like fully words on paper. And Professor Dan Frank went through and was like, we don't need this stuff, you should keep this stuff. And that was called making a rough cut. I made my first rough cut, and then I was told, just leave it for a few months, maybe come and see what happens when you come back to it. And then I did this for like a few of those. I came back to it, and when I did that, I was able to put sound on it, I was able to put sound effects, I was able to put music. Yeah, I think I just explained the first few points. I had to put the appropriate music, just music that would engage people rather than like be too distracting. I also had to check in with Professor Dan Frank and Jan Finley and show them my work, make sure they liked everything that I was producing. And yeah, I got constructive feedback, and I started writing scripts for voiceover narration, which you didn't hear in the demo because it's not really done. But yeah, that's kind of the last thing before it needs to get produced. So you're probably like, this has nothing to do with philosophy. Now, here's the philosophy part. So again, I do communications and critical thinking, and I have to really focus on that. For me, the biggest part where I really needed to think critically about any choice I made was in sound design, like specifically which sound effects or musical piece would fit in with the person, whoever was saying. I had to think critically about like the music I chose and to make sure I wasn't portraying the wrong message. An example I use is to not put like banjo music in the back of someone saying that they're from the South. It sounds pretty like straightforward, but you never know. Like, I am a Jewish individual, and I would find it very offensive if I wasn't even talking about being Jewish, but I just mentioned, oh, I'm Jewish, and then the music just switches to like Hava Nagila, like we're about to do the Hora. You know, that would be. I feel like that wouldn't be a logical choice to make, because all it would do was anger people around me or anger people, make them not listen to the podcast. And that's kind of what I needed to do. I needed to make sure that all this stuff was appropriate and that people would listen to it, and I had to make the right choices. And I needed to think about making the right choices. I had to constantly communicate and collaborate with Dan Frank and Jan Finley about dates, details, and the project as a whole. This communication is very crucial. Without me getting feedback from them, I wouldn't be able to do it. I wouldn't be able to do this whole project. It probably wouldn't even be as good as it is now. I also thought critically about the pacing, making sure it's not too slow to the fact that someone gets bored and wants to turn it off, or that it's not too fast so that people won't get confused and be like, what's going on here? So the pacing allows for the story to flow very nicely. Good flow will allow for the listener to follow along rather than be confused and just want to turn off the podcast. I think I just mentioned that. And one mistake caused by not thinking critically, like thinking in thinking in like, what choice do I make to like not make people not want to listen? It can cost people listeners, but yeah. I had to think in not just like a straight line, I had to think in like options, think in choices, which to me I think is very philosophical, because you're really like doing outcomes, like thinking about outcomes. And it reminds me of logic. I love taking logic. It was like one of my favorite philosophy classes. So my concluding statements, I learned a lot about how much work goes into something like this. When I was first asked this, I thought it was going to take like 3 to 4 months, and like I said before, it's taken 1.5 years. Here I am. It took so much like time due to all the planning, drafting, communication, and availability of everyone involved. Like, I was working with 2 full-time professors. They had to deal with their students before they had to deal with me. So there was times in which I was sitting here for months being like, hey, did you forget about me? But this this amount of time is like crucial so that each episode will come out sounding perfect. Like, I'd rather spend my time perfecting the episodes, like taking a longer time, instead of pumping it out really fast, not caring how it sounds, because then no one will want to listen to it. This project really presented itself as a great opportunity to perfect my audio skills, understand the importance of critical thinking, and gain knowledge on communicating and working with the team. Because obviously I'm probably going to do that more and more in the future, and it's a very good place to start. And the future impact of this project is going to be very substantial. I hope to inspire others with this work. I really do. And does anyone have any questions?
5 minutes per question.
Okay. Ian.
How often do you see, I know you said it was going to be like towards the beginning of the semester, like for incoming students, but the continuations of the podcast, how often do you see it being produced?
Monthly. I'm hoping, because we have like 9 episodes completed and like 2 on the way. So if they start releasing it monthly, then it gives us more time to like find more people to interview, and then like, you know, get everything recorded, getting everything edited, while still having episodes that are completely ready to just pump out. So I'm thinking monthly, but I'm not 100% sure. Yes.
Who's your favorite like person that was interviewed of the people so far?
That is so hard. I'm gonna go back to the list. There's so many that I really like. And it's not even just people. I think probably Monica Tibbetts, not because she is just a wonderful speaker. And she got to talk about like Legos the whole time, but honestly everyone like is so talented. Like Adrian Mims' story of how he created the calculus project, which is a project for students so that like African American and other underrepresented students don't fall behind in mathematics. I think that story is very inspiring of how this man was able to do that. I also like the Blake Hampshire and the baseball research one, because I genuinely liked the way I edited that. It was like so boring, and then I decided to like add some sound effects and make it sound a little better. And so it's very hard to say, but genuinely I think Monica Tibbetts not has always been my favorite. Yes.
Are you, forgive me if I missed this part of the presentation, but is this at all related to WML? Are you going to be working with them?
We kinda. I mean, we did tour their studio for it at one point, but like nothing came out of it. They're like, yeah, well, you can use our room, and then we never really did, because I think the digital media department just got better equipment, and we're like, okay, we can produce this on our own now. But it was a thing. Like I did go dressed really nicely to go to the Mumble studio, be like hi, and just shake people's hands.
I asked really quickly because like maybe they could broadcast.
Honestly, I feel like it would be a really good thing. Maybe we can. I might talk to Dan about that. Yes. Oh. Sorry.
No, it's okay. You can go. Do you think that not being a STEM major has like helped you do this in a way? Because like for me, I think if it was a STEM major that was doing this and editing it for like a general population, it might be like too technical. So do you think being like a film major has like impacted this in a good way?
I think so, genuinely, because I feel like if I have like a better sense of what the general public understands rather than someone who has been like doing STEM for many years. I mean, to be fair, I did come into UMass as a math major and then transfer to an electrical engineering major, so maybe I'm not the most unbiased. But now I'm philosophy. But I kind of do, because I feel like I understand more what the general public can understand. And at one point, I remember when we were interviewing someone, we were like, someone was explaining something really, really complicated, and I look over at, I think it was Dan and someone else, and I was like, do you think we should have him say this in layman's terms? And they're like, yeah, that's a good idea. So I think so. Yes.
So this is complete like speculation and just like out of my understanding, but when I was watching, like listening to like the podcast, you specifically for the like background sounds, you didn't diminish the sounds, but you specifically picked sounds that I would consider moments of like either high consciousness or high awareness, like the clapping for the professor or like the hit of the baseball. And so that kind of brings the person back into like their subconscious thought, into like realization of memory at that point in time, so that they can associate with the video.
Yes.
Do you feel like you did that with the intent of having these people speak in monotone voices so that the person listening to it could kind of go back to that memory so that they could build a connection with the person in the video speaking, so that there was more like connection to it and more substance? Or am I just creating that whole false illusion?
No, that's relatively correct. I feel that you kind of want to immerse your viewer. You want them to understand. I feel like we did, like what you were talking about with the students, we did have a take, or at least an edit, where there was no students at all, and it was rather bland and boring. And over the summer, someone went into one of the classes of the calculus project and recorded audio, and I feel like that made the episode better because everyone was more immersed. It felt like you were in the classroom. And at one point in the episode, I put like a class bell ringing, and just more students solving problems. I feel like it really, like what you were saying, you feel immersed. You feel like you're there on the plane of consciousness. Yeah. Yeah, and that's how I feel it's supposed to. It's like some sort of synesthesia, but like with this.
We're at time. That was really good. Thank you for your time.